Is MAGA blaming video games for violence? Because MAHA certainly is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the only Kennedy who hasn't been shot dead is criticizing video games for people getting shot dead. Make America healthy again by limiting your video game access. What do we think?
It's going back to that whole entire thing back in the 90s when the original Mortal Kombat came out, and you had, like, what was his name? Like, Jeff Johnson or whatever his name is.
Jack Thompson.
Jack Thompson, thank you. I knew it sounded something like that. But where he came out and say, like, oh, these violent video games are making kids pull their spines out of their assholes and all that bullshit.
I just think it's very interesting that this is a topic, and we're going to have to censor Roger using a swear word within this minute, but we'll keep in that laugh, right? And we'll keep in that prior comment so that you guys know that we're playing the game here on YouTube, and we're playing to win. That's why Digny has over 150 subs, and we'll pass Furious Dan very, very soon. And when we pass him, we're going to be like, LMFAO! I've done more in a month than you've done in 6 years. There we go. All right, then. I'm just going to share my screen. Literally, I've done so well. I've taken over someone's show.
Oh, boy.
Oh, dear. This is courtesy of Culture Crave. Now, this was from September the 10th, so this is like old news, folks. But I want everyone to know the relevant context for this topic, because I think it's a very important question. Because if the Trump administration gets hostile to not just video games, but popular culture as a whole, it will be over for MAGA forever. Mm-hmm. This is the time to take advantage of the fact that the Democrats are leaderless, rudderless, and without creative direction. But no, we're going to have this pill popper who wants to take away aluminum and mercury from vaccines, that evil bastard. Why do you want to take aluminum and perfectly fine metals out of vaccines? You bad man.
Red dye number 3.
This is a guy who can't even speak properly. You think Marge Simpson's voice is bad? You probably shouldn't have aluminum and mercury in your vaccines. How do I know this? I know this because I ingested aluminum and mercury. That's why my voice is so fucked up. But courtesy of Culture Crave, and I did that without a voice mixer, you fuckers. Courtesy of Culture Crave, RFK Jr. claims mass shootings could be linked to video games. This has been widely dismissed, including by studies from the Secret Service, the Department of Education, and the American Psychological Association. Now, I'll give RFK Jr. one thing. He's the best Kennedy around because he's the only Kennedy around, folks. But I just find this very concerning because are we going to see the creative direction of MAGA and of MAHA as being, let's be hostile against pop culture because we can? Let's get Jose's perspective first.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack with this. First of all, I will say this, that, up front, typically I do like RFK because of the fact that he's done things like blown up whales, eaten a bear's heart. I mean, these things are incredibly metal. Plus, he's a Kennedy, so there's a lot of dead prostitutes that have been left behind in his wake. That being said, you have to remember that at the end of the day, Robert Kennedy Jr. is coming from the Democrat Party. He is a Reformed Democrat, whatever that means. In fact, Donald Trump is a Reformed Democrat. His policies are what the Clintons' policies were some 20 odd years ago, and yet they say that he is now far right and a menace. But the thing is, nothing's really changed with Donald Trump, RFK, the left or the right here. Neither side has ever been on the side of gamers. There have been times in the past during Trump's first term where he also blamed violent video games. And this is coming off of the fact that the ICE shooter that we saw at the tail end of last week has something like over 1,000 hours a piece in Rust, Left 4 Dead 2, and the other game is Team Fortress 2. Now, I know a lot of people who play those games. Those games are well over 20 years old. If that caused a lot of violence, we'd have a lot more shooters running around to begin with. But it's always expedient for them to use this excuse to rein it in. This is what they're going to use to sort of align with the collective shouts of the world to dictate the content of video games. And it doesn't matter left or right who's in charge. We're in the middle, and we're always going to be sort of screwed by this. The problem is that too many people in our space, and I say that collectively as we are gamers, decided to dance on Charlie Kirk's grave 3 weeks ago. And the fact is, whether you like video games, whether you like anime, whether you like any of these things, the left does too. And unfortunately, the left has taken control. They've taken cultural control. That's why we talk about a woke Wolverine game. That's why we talk about a woke Ghost of Yotai game. The left has taken control of your hobbies. And it's very simple. It's so that you have no allies on the other side that are going to go to bat for you when those hobbies implode on themselves. By every leftist doing a dance on the grave of Charlie Kirk, basically, celebrating a man's assassination, by all these leftists being anti-ICE, and then an anti-ICE shooter gets himself into a lot of trouble and happens to have over 3,000 hours of video games played on 3 shooters. It's so that this way, if we can't control this space, for the rest of you that don't want us here, we will destroy this space and we'll use the people you voted for to do it. Because the people you voted for at the end of the day are not, other than JD Vance, who's around our age, all of them are boomers. They all think Mortal Kombat, Grand Theft Auto, Night Trap, Doom, etc. causes the problem. Because it's easier to blame that for what the generation in front does than the fact that many of them were bad parents. Many of them did not prevent these transgender people into gaming, these woke people into gaming, these leftist people into gaming. And it just is a convenient excuse. And we are going to pay the price. We are going to pay the price because we didn't gatekeep these people the hell out when we had the chance. Now they've come in, they've taken over our hobby, and they're going to either change the locks and kick us out, or they're going to make sure the government puts a boot on our neck by the time we reclaim said hobby.
Exactly. I'm of the view that boomers are to America what the greatest generation was to the Soviet Union, in that we're never letting go of power. We will only let go of power when we're dead. And the Soviet Union had that massive problem because most of its leaders, especially towards the end, were born before the Second World War. They were at least in their 60s, and they had this old mindset that was completely destroying their society. And this, you have to consider, the 1980s was a period of massive innovation in the West, because we had not because we had a younger generation at the helm, but the creative direction of the West was of a younger generation, even if our leaders were, older in that respect, right? The creative focus of a generation is as important as those of a generation who are in power. And I think our biggest problem today, and it's actually a good problem to have, when people live too long. Usually the problem is people don't live long enough. But for generations, we have been governed by one group of people, not that group of people, folks, the other group of people who were born after the Second World War. A lot of them were born, and in a democratic society, they're the ones who win out. That's why they get their lovely pensions, and you can't get free tuition. And thank you to the Gamer Empress for raiding the stream. We appreciate you, lovely lady. Thank you for raiding a stream without a host or a guest. living proof that if you can't make your network show, I will. If you can't run your show, I will. Ha. I really am Israeli, aren't I? But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very dangerous when, politically speaking, the entire landscape is like, this industry is to blame for a tragedy. Because under that mindset, it's very simple. That industry is going to die.
Disgusting, tangent kings, a new age, a story.